Hey, look at all our pajama bottoms. They just changed our tops. They can't see us, but they can see the
Yeah.
I think you're live.
We're live, and they are too. Live in a remote world.
Good morning,
Good, well.
or good afternoon, or good
e-
evening.
Yes. Welcome. 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 So many faces. You just fill me up just looking at you all. It's wonderful. Yes, yes. All right.
I'd like to know who
Yes,
is joining us for the first time. You can just wave your hand. Hey, we got, quite a few. All right, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
all right. So namaste.
Namaste.
All right. These Saturday programs are addressing a theme, an unfolding theme. So I invite those of you who weren't here for the first talk to listen to it. It's titled The Miracle of the Body. And it really is sequential as we unfold here. So they're all under this theme of recognizing the power and the effectiveness of the body on the spiritual path as a means of integrating and expanding the capacity, the potential that we all carry to be able to be channels and instruments of this new consciousness that's coming to the world. So it's really meant to empower you in whatever way you're traveling in understanding and perhaps beginning to tap into that incredible potential that you carry in your bodies. To awaken with the body is really the essence of my teachings. It's the essence of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. It's the essence of the teachings of Sri Aurobindo, that it speaks to an inherent possibility that the body carries to be a vehicle for the world mother to manifest the new consciousness that is the foundational purpose and reason of this transitional period we are in. So that said, I feel I'm going to reference some parts from the first talk to lead to this talk. In this talk, we're really going to see how the physical body is actually the most outer manifestations of multiple bodies that are with us continuously. To be able to get a sense of the fact that our existence in a body is a representation of a vast field of consciousness that extends into infinite possibilities, of which we traverse when we begin to truly align ourselves with the possibility of transformation that the spiritual path brings. So this talk is going to be the body and transformation. That's nature of the transformational process. Now, many of us who've awakened to the spiritual path, transformation doesn't occur, not in the body. It occurs in our consciousness, and perhaps we enter into other subtler bodies. But what we do in that case is leave behind where the transformation really needs to happen in this era, in this time, which is in our bodies. So transformation is actually the expanding of the body's programming to break out of the limits of what nature has determined and start creating a new, more resilient capacity for the body to align with this new consciousness that's trying to come into the world. For us, our whole life, everything we've lived, everything we've wanted, everything we've striven for, everything we seek and long for, cry for, aspire for, comes from this field where the simple direction is to exist, to be. This field of consciousness is the basis, the foundational design of all existence. It is actually the cosmic womb, the world mother, to bring forward the possibility of the absolute to exist, to live, to be, to grow. This is the imperative that we've been born in the middle of. It is always here. It's here right now. This purposeful field, this single imperative to exist, has been the one directive that has brought everything we've ever longed for, wanted, be, that we have, and everything in existence, the striving of nature to evolve, to expand, to become more and more capable of being conscious, is really the one single imperative, the purpose, which is the engine that has allowed our bodies to be. And the record of this entire movement is stored in our body. Every stage of it, every event is actually the building blocks that has allowed for physical matter, biological matter, and self-awareness. And it's actually living us right here, right now. So even though we take for granted our consciousness, we take for granted right now, you're taking for granted your capacity to hear me, to move, to organize your life, to show up a certain way. The imperative behind all of that is to be, to exist, to grow, to learn, to expand, to become more than what we were. So what we're talking about is something that's already here, and learning to discover that for ourselves through our awakened consciousness, to become aware of this fantastic unfolding principle that we are channels and instruments for, that already, though bound and shaped by our upbringing and our conditioning, it has inherent in each of us this much greater expanded ability that the new consciousness is pointing to. This imperative is more strong now than ever because the opportunity for consciousness to become aware of existence is threatened. We are on the edge of an apocalyptic event, of which this coronavirus is one reflection. So right now, as we all sit in our quarantine, as we've become aware that our lives as we've known it has changed, that and that quality of the difference is yet to unfold. The very fundamental fabric of the assumptions of us in a society, in a world, which allows this very technology to have this conversation, is now at a time that we have to wake up to these fundamental principles in order to find a new collective consciousness to address the problems that are creating the era we are in, this transition we are in. So this imperative to exist is more widely available than ever before. It is trying to enter into each one of us. It's trying to expand our capacity to recognize the fundamental reality of what we are, of who we are, to break out of the structures and the limitations as this energy comes in, to be able to see those things and begin to dismantle them in our lives, so that this imperative can come in new ways, in the same way that Krishna came to Arjuna to help Arjuna do what he was not capable of. So too is this new consciousness coming into us to make us more capable of doing what's now necessary and needed. This task is coming because you're awakened, because you showed up today, because there's something in you it's interested in serving this transition. This is the core of all of our awakenings, not just to be free from our ignorance and our bondage and our limitation and our suffering, but to wake up to this very foundational principle, this quality of consciousness, purposeful consciousness, and in the process, recover our ability to engage in meeting the parts of ourselves that have been taken for granted or assumed or hidden, both within ourselves individually, in our own personal structures, our design, our issues, as well as our piece of the collective, error and ignorance, all of which has contributed to the peril we're in right now. And in the process, when Krishna comes to Arjuna, something totally new can happen. And that totally new, that means relative to what has been known previously, comes alive and starts a process in the very fabric of the design of the material of our biological, bioelectrical system, which then sets in what we are calling a process that we call transformation, which is literally a changing of something into something else. It's not change, it's a mutation, a transmutation of a lesser capacity into a greater capacity, one that's more true, one that's more real, one that's more connected, one that brings more of the essential, powerful potential we carry as embodied self-aware consciousness. In fact, almost everyone connected to me is going in this process. Why? Because the process has completed, or is in the process of endlessly completing, its work in my system. And when one of us aligns ourselves with this new consciousness, it impacts all of us. And each one of us can actually be enriched by others who have further along in this process of this redesign, this reorganization of who and what you thought you were into a greater and greater instrument and channel, which then feeds the possibility of this new consciousness so that it becomes real. And in the process of doing so, it becomes more real for us and thereby more real for others that we are in connection with. So this is what's happening right now. This is what I'm doing. And this is what some of the people who are aligned with me are doing. And what's happening with the entire milieu of this community is this acceleration that's consistent with the necessity of this era. And you're all part of this. So part of these talks is for you to begin to understand that the way we have looked at the world previously is not sufficient for what is needed to be seen as it is. So that is beginning to speak to the nature of the transformational process. Is first the discovery of the limitations, of the obscurities, of the hidden parts, the structures and habits that we were programmed with, to be able to attend to them sufficiently to dissolve their authority to shaping our ability to be, shaping our ability to recognize opportunity, limiting our ability to choose the higher possibility than the one we've been able to choose before. That strengthens our little will, our little self-will, with a divine will, a greater will, which empowers things to happen in us that goes beyond us, goes beyond our little paradigm, the little self, and has us become agents and instruments for this larger self, this larger and greater and endlessly expanding self, which is connected to all of us, to all of us, to everything living, to the planet and the fabric of the entire cosmic domains. Now, as I'm talking to you now, I'm also talking to the multiple yous that go beyond the one that's been organized around your personality. That what's listening, you might not call it listening, but it's a receiving of a vibration that the human hearing is one expression of, a vibration of ether. This vibration, which is actually a quality of knowing we all carry. You might say it's the radiant emanation of our being in the body that gives us this field of listening and hearing, not sounds like the words that are coming through, but the vibration behind the sound. The first sound in existence was Om. It was a ha. It was a hoo. It was a It was like, I'm beginning to exist. I see a way to come into and fulfill this imperative to exist. So this vibration, this Om, is going on continuously in our subtle body, and it can hear it. They can feel it. But we have to become very simple in our physical body. We have to become quiet. We have to become still. We have to become simple to hear, feel this frequency. This is our subtle, the subtle human body. It's an extension of our person, of our individuality. So it's like a protective zone. It also has, recognize this as a aura, a field of awareness without thought, without a strategy. But it's really actually behind it is the strategy is how do I exist and what might threaten that existence. So it's our early warning signal that picks up the vibration of the atmosphere. It picks up the vibration of other people, but it comes into the field of our individuality, which then it cesses it. So it's an extension of our ego, of our own self-preservation. It's something that we've lost access to in our physicality, in the habit of regular human thinking, seeing, feeling, the obscuration that has come from living a life in the world we have now, which is really a derivative of life. We live slightly removed from life in the same way we're slightly removed from each other in this virtual world. But it's interesting to notice that in this context, we can feel the vibration more readily than if you were with me physically, because you're not being distracted from that habitual pattern of getting a sense of existence, the way you've gotten existence before. You're also seeing. Now, sight itself is simply an interpretation of light, of the energy of light by the brain, creating images. So it's really a camera that receives impressions. And again, in the eyes itself, It's very much associated with the physical body, and therefore when we're used to seeing through the eyes, the physical objects that the eyes are recognizing, we're limiting the ability to see as a vibration, as a quality of knowing and getting information that goes beyond the brain's habitual, instinctive, reactive training programming. Now, all of this is possible because the brain, this pile of oatmeal in our skulls, is incredibly resilient. That, yes, we were programmed to interpret the world through our eyes or ears, but we can learn to exist in the world without the physical eye, physical ear, capable of receiving. This is how blind people live. This is how deaf people live. They live in this psychic capacity to hear and see, and it can create an ability to maneuver that's uncanny to the ordinary consciousness. Perhaps some of you know what it's like, where you can be in total darkness and see in a different way. Sense where things are. Like another part of your brain is being developed to see with. So this quality of us is right there already with us. We may not make that distinction. We may not be able to see the difference between physical seeing and the seeing through vibration until we've awakened. Because then when we awaken and the body falls away and our consciousness is then consciousness itself traversing into the first domains of spiritual domains, it begins to see as if it's real through the psychic body. When you're in that state, like in dreams, dreams have sight, have sound, have touch. They have all these sensory experiences, but they're not actually apparent to us that it's connected to our physical body. We're in that body. We're living in that psychic body. So that's the first body that's related to this physical body. But then we have that body, the psychic body, is still a membrane. It's still like the membrane that encloses the baby that it has to break out of. It's a field of individuality. When we awaken, there's a tear in the membrane. We step out of the membrane. It's the same as like in a house looking out the window at the scene. You can have giant windows and you have a beautiful house, but you're still looking through the window. When true awakening happens, there are no windows. We step into the immediacy of the vibration that takes us beyond just hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, tasting. It's a inrush of a one field of vibration that expands the very essential quality of us that sees, that hears, that smells, that tastes, that touches. That's when we enter into our subtle body. This subtle body is what travels between lifetimes. This subtle body is that expression that's called the soul that can traverse beyond our particular physical embodiment. So when we awaken to the soul. We awaken to that capacity to be the truth itself. And of course, it takes time, just like it took time for us as a newborn baby to figure out what sight and sound and taste and sensation was. So it takes time when we awaken to learn how to be in that experiential domain. And then when we come back to our body, when we come back to ordinary consciousness from such an awakening moment or period of time, we begin to see that the body begins to remember what happened there. But it may take time. So these first awakening experiences may be inarticulate, or in some ways, these what we call transcendent dreams, which do still come through the psychic, come in to our physical brain in a way that we can remember them. This is the beginning of the process of our transformation. It's beginning to train the old wiring in new ways. And it comes because the body is inherently plastic. It can feel the sound. It can taste the sight. It is not bound by the boundaries of our body and its five senses. It has this inherent resilience if we will allow it. But of course, it means we need to learn to come out of the strategies that sight, sound, touch, feel, taste, smell that we've been habituated to our lived life. Our preferences, our repulsions, our feeling afraid or desiring, the structures associated with the physical organization and needs of the human body to survive, to succeed, to get what it wants, to avoid what it doesn't want. So this process can feel very difficult. It could be threatening. You could feel very vulnerable and unstable. The body itself might forget how to digest. It might not be able to go to sleep. It may not be organized in the way it was organized before because a very fundamental fabric of what had ordered us before as individual human beings is now expanding and changing. We're dissolving into a field of consciousness. And for a period of time, maybe years, this process could be very challenging for that little part of ourselves, that part of ourselves that was able to organize its life to be a person to the extent that it's been to this point, whatever that might look like. It also opens up a possibility where when we've awakened without knowing it, we've not just awakened from something, from the previous condition of our being, we've awakened to something that's much greater than ourselves, which is really actually taking us into other bodies, literally subtle bodies, subtle physical, subtle vital, low and high, subtle mental bodies, by which we learn to recognize an inner relationship between each one of these bodies and the fact that each one of these bodies have their own comparable domain. Just like in this physical world, we have the domain of physical world, other people, lives, planets, mountains, hills, skies, the universe, all of this is part of this physical domain. All of this physical domain has a counterpart in the subtle physical. It has a counterpart in the vital dimension. It has a counterpart in the higher vital dimension. It has a counterpart in the lower mental dimension and in the higher mental dimension. There are these multiple domains, multiple dimensions of which we begin to traverse. Each has its own reality. Just like when you're in a dream, even though you're in a dream in your psychic bubble, if your psychic is developed enough, it's porous. And something of the field of consciousness that's raging beyond the boundary of your auric awareness starts permeating, and you have these translucent dreams, these vivid, alive experiences. You're beginning to tap into the energy of that domain. You're beginning to tap into the quality of consciousness of those domains. And when you can bring them back into your body, it begins to set in motion a reordering of the very fundamental bioelectrical, biological processes of the body that incorporate this new consciousness. And that process is where the very substance of the matter of your body, of your physical body, and the organization of the cells start reorganizing in just the same way as a caterpillar, when it weaves its cocoon, dissolves before it emerges at a later point and another kind of being. It is nature's facsimile to what transformation is. an undoing of the old, and in the process allowing for something truer, more expanded, more capable to come into existence in our own reality, and that in us which defines what's real or not real, which, as I speak into before, is the essential quality of the soul, which I call the Sat, or the Supreme Being as it comes into existence. That central quality of us that allows us to know I am, I exist. This is the one that traverses this journey, not the person, not the story, not the history, not the capacities as the human being, but as very essential principle. This starts coming into existence more and more fully, and it is then starts to take over that little self as we become a greater self. And it brings with it this capacity of consciousness to continuously manifest new ways of being, of experiencing, of learning and knowing. This enhances our ability to become stable in the spiritual awakening process. Each of these transitions have a quality of experience. Each of these transitions has a certain quality of consciousness, of awareness. Each enhances something of the other, as if a building stone, as if a scaffolding. And as we develop this capacity, we not only become more capable of ascending into a more direct and immediate relationship with the fabric of all the domains that support this domain, we also are able to descend into the very foundational design and the miracle of that design that's there in our bodies. This movement of consciousness, of ascending and then descending, is the nature of this particular path of the integral yoga, which is actually the one path that the whole universe wanted us to do ever since the very beginning. So it's not limited by any tradition or any religion. It is the process every human being goes through on any path, as long as it's successful. This moving up into relationship with that which is greater above, and moving deeper into the relationship of that which is still hidden, that is also greater, that's below. And who's traveling this? Who's discovering this? It's you. It's the you here right now. It's this you sitting in your chair or on your couch or wherever you are. This quality of you right now, this thing of me. I, the one who claims, the one who clings, the one who wants, the one who's calculating, the one who's trying to figure it out. This you, that central quality of yourself, is who travels this journey. And this quality is the Supreme Being itself. This is the ultimate authority. This is the part of you that fulfills the entire purpose of existence. When we wake up to this truth and the truths of these domains, we become more and more that which we worship, that which we long for, that which we seek fulfillment in every other avenue of a life, if we know it or not. Seeking happiness in all the wrong places. We're seeking a happiness that's based on recovering our own reality and learning to come into life at each level that life shows up for us. Now, I have a secret. I've traveled all these domains. I've gone as high above as below as the universe has been able to show me so far. It doesn't mean I can bring it back. I only bring back a tiny fraction. And what I'm speaking is a piece of that tiny fraction, a fraction of a fraction. So I know the limitation of how this comes out, but I do know the transmission, the vibration. The vibration is a call. a call, a song that's calling us to something greater than we know now, that lifts us and inspires us to that quality of the call itself. The sense of current, the sense of aliveness, the sense of immediacy, the sense of expanded knowing, this ability to be more open and willing, this ability to feel, start feeling the deep interconnectedness that we have with everything in existence. Every flower, every rock, every piece of dirt, every tree, the sky itself, the mountains, the vast wonders of space, the oceans, the depths of the oceans. We can take and travel and experience in more real ways something of the miracle that life, physical life is already. When we do that, when we bring it back, we enrichen the world. We enrichen the world to know itself. We enrichen all that can receive the vibration of the new consciousness in this dimension, and thereby fulfill our role, our Dharma, as awakened beings. The tire meets the road in our bodies. This is where it happens. All other dimensions are simply draw their strength to know and to be experienced from the physicality of our embodiment. Because this infinite, vast field of consciousness that's everywhere can only become real when it's inhabited, when it inhabits us. It can only wake up to itself through us. We are the creators and the definer of what's real and not real. We are the original creative consciousness. But now when we awaken to that, as we expand spiritually, our ability to perceive and experience the truth of what it means to be in existence is much more powerful, more full, more true, more inclusive than anything we could know just through our self-awareness. In the process, our capacity, our will, our ability to align with the process of expanding and responding to the cry, to the call, it increases. Because at every expansion, there is a calling to, there's a cry that's clinging and hanging on to the old. Something that's afraid, something that's too small, something that feels it can't do this, it's too much. To feel the resistance and the not wanting to know, and not wanting to see, and not wanting to experience, the repulsions. That the part of us is still is trying to resolve or work out something from the small, little, miserable, shallow, unexamined self, who believes that the reality it's created over its 30, 40, 50 years is the only real reality. Even though the higher consciousness can know better, there's this immature part, this undeveloped part of us that is hanging on to the old. Only feels comfortable when it can come back to that. It's very hard to come out of that part of ourselves because it is how we defined ourselves as who we are and what was important in our life and what we made important, wittingly or unwittingly. So as it starts expanding, it's like being torn apart. It's like being stretched beyond its boundaries. This is very uncomfortable for as long as that expansion is occurring. But if we can endure it calmly, if we can consciously collaborate with the process of the new consciousness coming in through all our bodies, then it becomes embodied in a way that this transformation can occur. We become the collaborators with creating a new vessel for the Supreme Being that is more capable of playing its role in the collective consciousness in this dimension. So in the 13th chapter, Krishna points to it. 13th chapter of the Gita is after the mergers, after the recognition of the Supreme. It is the point where we begin to see with this X-ray vision, both microscopic and also telescopic, begins to see for itself the fabric of reality and its purpose, its design, how every one piece is a reflection of the whole, that each part of our body, every cell, every strand of our nervous system is a piece of a whole, carries the entire potential evolutionary story within itself, and is interconnected with all other pieces in that collaborative process, because it's a magnificent laboring that allows for us to exist for our 50, 60, 70, 80 years. It's empowered by this inherent purpose that is now stronger than ever, awakening people all over the world, here within each of us. All right, this is perfect. See if you can feel the current of this purpose in your body right now. Just step away, just turn inward a bit. See if you can feel the vibrational frequency. Maybe it's strumming your heartstrings. Maybe it's expanding your awareness. Maybe you can feel it in the different organizing channels of the physical body. In the first chakra, second chakra, third chakra, fourth chakra, fifth chakra, sixth chakra. That vibrational quality, however your body is able to receive it, see if you can find it. Its location in your body or locations. Initially, it may not have a location, but if you attend to it, if you be open to finding a location, you'll find the location. Be aware of how it's expanding your awareness, because consciousness is the root of your awareness. The awareness is always self-awareness. There is no other kind of awareness like your awareness. Consciousness is enhancing your awareness of what is true, is turning the light of you on that which is yet to be seen, experienced, known, both above and below. Check your chest, check your neck, check your belly, check your whole body itself. See what's there. If you're not feeling anything, or notice if you have more sensation in one of these places or the other. This is how you attune your listening, your attention, to discover in your own experience the nature, the truth of what I'm speaking of, and to nurture your ability to understand and recognize the territory you perhaps have not yet discovered. The darkness, the resistance, the untapped potentials that you carry as an embodied self-aware being. In the 13th chapter of the Gita, Arjuna asks, what's the difference between the field and the knower? between matter and spirit. Krishna is telling that our body is the field. It is the field of our battle. It's our Kurukshetra, the field of action where we redeem and transmute and transform that which we are battling. And who is it that knows the field? What is the truth of what you are? So that you can know your body. You become the knower of the field. And because your body is intricately interconnected to the entire field of existence, both manifest and unmanifest, you discover your body as a doorway into domains of being that have not yet been available to you. The last chapter of the 13th chapter says, the last verse of the 13th chapter says, as the one sun lights the whole world, so also the one all-pervading soul illuminates all bodies. Those who are able to know the difference between the field and the knower to the eye of knowledge and are capable of transcending Prakriti will attain the supreme state. This is the miracle of the body. So this is where the real work was. And that's why transformation in the spiritual path is an integral part of it, but perhaps it has not gotten the emphasis that it needs to be given, because each of us have to be conscious collaborators with the process of this transformation. We have to understand that the resistance and the obscurity, the difficulties and the challenge aren't part of your psychology, but part of a releasing of the contraction of the habit of your separative existence. And that process can be very difficult. When we choose to collaborate with the process, recognizing that it's purposeful, we can begin to digest the poison. We can begin to release the trapped energies. We can begin to open up the possibilities that are lost in the contraction of our habit of ourselves and recover that, eat that, digest it, and infuse that, allowing for another kind of being, person, than you've been able to be before. Inherent in our bodies is the entire, not only the cosmos, the entire fabric of all the dimensions of existence that have been required all along to support the process of matter becoming spirit. And that there have been two principles, there have been underlying principles behind this, which actually our body is where it happens. The entire creation will be, as you progress on the spiritual path, shown and resolved in our field of our own bodies, if we can tolerate the process, if we can choose to collaborate with it, and we can choose to call for a higher force to come in and assist us in being with, tolerating, and expanding into that which we have not yet learned how to meet, be, include. Okay, so feeling right now, I'm going to open this up for some interaction. There's another piece of this that I want to get back to, so we'll just have a few people come forward. But I want to kind of integrate, let this where you are right now, whatever is there is going on for you, either what's out of this conversation or something that's been arising for you that's point that you wish to bring forward, to share, or to interact with me about. This will be your opportunity to do so. We'll let 2, 3, maybe 4 people come forward. So if you're interested in doing that now, please wave your hand, hit the little hand symbol on your screen, or send a chat. Okay.
So we do have Ramananda.
Ramananda. Welcome, Ramananda. Good to see you again. Up, can't hear him.
No sound.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear us. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, great. I'm kind of in trouble. I have since that unraveling happened, just watching. There are so many parts of me that appear to have just been flung out, and how I used to organize, how I used to control, how I used to choose, how I used to maintain. Um, I just feel like I'm basically shaking and out of control, and I don't have a. I mean, I think the only good thing about this is that actually I feel like I have a sincere and serious need of your help at this point.
Okay, this is beautiful. Thank you, Ramananda. I mean, if you try to imagine what it feels like for the caterpillar as it's dissolving in the cocoon, it's very comparable to what you're feeling right now. It's actually a wonderful gift that you're where you are. It's not anything your ego would want, I guarantee it. But your being is so excited that it's continuing to burn and eat everything up right now without you consciously recognizing it's going on. That you have surrendered the resistance. You have surrendered what Ramananda was before. You are now, something new is coming. There is always going to be the cry as the call comes. Because when we call, the danger of asking for the universe to come and do the work is it comes. Then the real crying goes on as it dissolves the error and the habits and the programming that our body carries. And you've been on this planet for quite a while. You've developed a lot of strategies to make sure you're safe and in control, and you got it your way, and to divert and avoid, right? Like all of us, right? We're a whole bundle of these things, which we as a supreme being unwittingly have created and bound ourselves. And to lose those then threatens the very error of the ego that thinks it needs to survive. The egoing, because associated with a body that's our personality and the part that relates to the world and gets the amount of bliss and experience and wonder that it can through the personal body, that too is not sufficient for what the universe is asking of us, and it's asking of you. So just know that what I am is what you are, and what I am is holding you, that part of you, through that part of you that is what I am. The more you're able to find yourself in our relationship, the more you're empowered to recognize that although you can't know anything in the way you've known before, you can't feel the way that was comfortable or gave you some assurance of your reality in this dimension, right? It's no longer working. It's all falling away. And what's not yet able to know what that is, or to be so happy that you're being eaten by the lion of the universe, the Visharupa, where all the teeth that's swallowing the entire creation. You're being swallowed. You're going down the gullet. You're being dissolved by the fire of transformation. And what's going to pop up? This new kind of Ramananda.
So when the self-obsessed and the destructive and the I couldn't care less about anything other than what I want in the moment starts, it's just gets really strong. I can feel it just trying to get into my body and make me do things. And maybe a couple of years ago that might have been cute. It's not cute anymore.
No.
And I just feel so helpless with it. I don't know.
Beautiful. I mean, this is the surrender. This is what surrender feels like. It's not easy for the ego. It's not easy for old self. It's the real thing. It's the real thing. This is the tire meeting the road in the body. This is the awakened consciousness that we've had for years and years. Now coming to such a degree of intensity and awakening that it's actually dissolving that which is not it. It's truth dissolving the untruth. It's actually an act of love, just like food is an act of love. We eat the separate food, we chew it up, which might be the cute part, and then we're swallowed, and then the digestive fluids come in and start burning and converting the dense matter into something that the universal body can digest and use.
So I'll just
really-
let my teeth chatter, huh?
Yeah. It's a wonderful, terrible, it's horrific. It's a horror and terrific. It's a horrible, terrific, and a terrific, horrible.
Is it possible to love you and hate you at the same time?
You will realize there's no difference, just like sat and asat. They're just two aspects of the same principle. So what you're
Because you-
digesting is the energetic structure of that hate you, love you.
Because you're helping me and destroying me at the same time, right?
Yes, you're welcome.
I'm going to shut up and let somebody else have to.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have Shikini.
Shikini.
Okay.
Hi.
Oh, well, this is Adriana.
It's yes, Shikini. There's Shikini in the background, and I forget your name.
Adriana.
Ariana. Yes, welcome.
First of all, thank you very much for the offerings of the meditations. It's a great present for a lot of us. And in my body, I feel like for probably 2 months and a half, like this in my ears.
Sound in
used
your
to
ears,
be
like a
the sound
ringing.
of my
Yes.
ears. Yes, it used to be like just the full pressure on the head,
Yeah.
but after your the intensives and the meditations and the silent retreat, it's dispersed, it's gone, but still like there's the sound in the ears. And in my meditations I feel like if there are like valves, little valves, like stopping something, so I just try to kind of like let the valves loose and just let things
Is
flow.
it coming in when you do that? Does he feel that energy coming in when you release the valve?
Yes, yeah, it's just coming in.
How
So
far does it come in?
um
Goes to your
like
throat?
it stays, yeah, it allows my throat and like kind of that connection with my nose and my heart.
And your heart?
Like, yeah,
Okay.
like the valves of my heart are through my nose.
Yeah, I got it.
So yeah, and that's how far like I can just like let this thing
Okay.
flow.
So this is the universe. This is transformation. It's trying to come into her body. And what's stopping it are where the blockages is. Issues of control, issues of loss, issues of pain, emotional pain that are needing to be met and dissolved before this vibration. It's a vibration. And what you're hearing right now is the sound of your soul. Each person's soul has a sound, and it's you can hear it like and not hear it. It's a vibration that comes through the ether, through the habitual organ of our ear. And it can be irritating, but it's also goes to show that the vibration has increased. That vibrational energetic component is now singing. It's happy. It's happy to be here, and it's letting you know with this vibration that it's coming for you in order to be you.
Fantastic.
Yes, it is fantastic. And in the process, it's helping you dissolve the obstacles and the barriers, the traumas and the stresses, that the compromises and the betrayals that has organized our individuality to release the energy that's locked up into those survival, physical survival, emotional survival strategies in order to relax. So when you consciously choose to relax, you're collaborating. You're saying yes. You're saying yes. Just
Yeah.
keep saying yes. And that's our ability to say yes is one thing, but then we have to be and hold the process of when it comes, because it could activate things that you didn't want to activate, all the structures of your life that you've met. Now you have to meet them right down to the root where they came from, to the same structure that existed in your mother or your father or in your culture or the part of the collective consciousness that came through your ancestors. So there is this process that goes on for years with this transformation as it enters more deeply into the fabric. Now, how has it been able to enter in you? It's been able to enter in you through your psychic body. Your psychic body has opened up. It's thinned. It's become thin. And the truth of the reality of you is also coming in, and it's giving you this sense of purpose of why this is happening. It's strengthening your ability to be a collaborator, and it's coming through your psychic bubble. The universe comes in. And that's when the crown just feels so big and so wide. Because then the entire vast multidimensional domains start trying to find a way to show themselves to you. Because you're the only one that matters. The whole universe wants you to see it. So it keeps seeking to show itself, like lost children. Because what we are in the core of ourselves is what's created this whole multidimensional universe. We then become the embodiment of the very thing that created the children of all of existence. And it all wants to come to us when it can find itself in us. This is the magic. This is the miracle. This is the miracle. And the body is the means. So just trust the process.
Mhm.
You're fully in recognition of the opportunity. You know the truth of it. Beautiful.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Next, we have Trish.
Trish. Hey, been a while. There she is. I saw you bouncing around on the screen there for a while.
Was I dancing or?
Yeah, you were hopping, woo, woo, going forward and back, and I think you were getting it.
Oftentimes I feel a spiral movement in my body, and I don't block it or stop it.
Good.
Kind of even when I'm standing.
Yeah, it's you're being danced.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that.
The universe has a song, and the body has a dance, right? The body responds to the dance. That's what the whirling dervishes were doing. They were trying to keep up with the song as it whirled them.
Yeah, we're both Sufi dancers. I don't do the whirling dervish, but from a young child, I've been in my body and been really punished for being in my body and active and wanting to dance and sing and move. So it's been a reclaiming process. And I wanted to thank you last time, what you said, all this joy I'm feeling. And I wasn't feeling much guilt about it, but I felt like I should inhibit myself and not tell anybody and not share that. And after you told me that, I'm sharing freely that it's okay to be joyful. So that was such a gift that I could
Very good.
didn't feel like I had to hide anymore.
Yeah, sometimes it's simple as that, where you get permission to be what you already are.
Yeah, I find what's coming up for me now is truth has always been so important, but I mean, truth is really important to me now. And I'm feeling like I don't have to do anything. Over the years, I've become less and less reactive to anger, but now it's just a whole nother level of patience that I can't own or deserve, in particular from my own, when you practice things and you get better at it, you know,
Yeah, right,
it's just another level that's come to me.
Yes, the level of your sadhana.
Yeah, but I still notice there's an old habit that comes up for me that my dad just passed during all of this, and we were on the way to the funeral and we couldn't go because of a bunch of roadblocks. We had to come back home. And so I was writing letters to him for my process. And I noticed what's coming up is that's, see, I almost cried because I couldn't really cry. There was no funeral. To be healed, the shaming stuff, I'm sure he was shamed. And that's what came up in my letter to him, that he's German, that all that Nazi shame, and that he was shamed, and he just thought he was training us to be good children by shaming us. And so I notice now that when someone goes to speak to me on Zoom, we're doing new things, they say, oh, Trish, there's something I want to tell you. And I'm sure they're going to tell me something bad, like I'm moving too much, or I'm too silly, or I'm waiting for the shame. So that piece is coming up to be healed. And I never really noticed it before. I just got like braced, like, of course, someone's going to tell me bad because I have so many bad things to heal. But now I notice it before it comes, and I breathe and I say, is that true? Is that it? Do I really need to be shamed? And even if they say that, that's just their truth. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Doesn't mean I need to change that. So that is like been a real gift that I'm noticing, that I never even noticed that I did that before. I'm braced at all times to get shame.
It's very good. I mean, that's the whole conversation of the habit of addiction to shame, that we don't even know it's a habit that we're doing. And that when you can actually catch yourself doing it, you start unwinding the error of that structure that's kept us small, kept us limited, prevented us from being free and in a full joy. So what Trish is demonstrating is a stage of the transformational process where she's now able to be in the immediacy of the resistance, of the reaction in her system.
I want to say something.
So that it cannot, so it's not preventing her from staying in her own authority.
I want to make a comment.
Yeah.
Hi,
I
Trish.
want to hear what you have to say. Yes.
I wanted to say
Women, yes.
the Jung language and experience I had about 2 years ago of, you know, I mean, my whole life, probably like you, just bracing to hear that negative comment that I realized about 2 years ago was someone's projection onto me. That may have truth in it or it may not have, but it was such a relief. And, you know, for you to be able to speak this to the group, I'm sure there's almost no one who can't resonate with what you said.
Right.
Thank you for the teaching.
Yeah, yes. And that's what we become, Trish. We become the truth embodied. And that joyful truth, the nature of the truth that's come for Trish, is unique to her. Each of us will have our own way of being freed up to be what was inherently there in the original, you could say, purpose of our birth. Coming out of the defeat of our conditioning and our upbringing and our programming into the recovering something of our always true nature. So what Trish is doing now is being the supreme being as Trish in existence. And look it out. See, it is like that. When you break through, when you're done with the digestion, when you've been spit out and all's left is you think you're a turd, that's what allows for you to come and discover this new possibility. So yeah, perfect. All right, Trish, thank you.
I had one more question. Our house, my friend tests people's houses to see how much, what's the juju called, honey?
The EMFs,
The EMFs. And we live
maybe.
behind a mountain. And also, I'm real sensitive to that. I'm real sensitive to any
G-
energy.
G5.
And so we plug in our computers and everything's plugged in and we don't do anything. We don't have any of that in our house. So she tested our house and if we have dirty electricity in our plugs and all that. And she said, I'm jealous your house is like less than mine. And she's like the queen of this. I don't really know too much about it other than I stay away from it. But I'm concerned about the 5G
Yes.
and all this that's coming along. How do all of us who are, my mom's Blackfoot, I'm Native American and my dad's Swedish Norwegian, so that's why I look blonde. But how do us Native people, there's a word, a Native American word for it in my tribe, I'm a sensitive. So if they wanted to test something, they would put it on my wrist and see if the rest of the tribe could have it. And energetically, I'm a sensitive. How do us sensitives move that through us or not be hurt by that?
Yes, that sensitivity is still part of the psychic body. That means that the native like first 2-3 generations carry this natural psychic awareness as part of their bodies. So their body knows. Their body could sense the weather. They could sense a deer some distance in the woods. They could sense what needs to happen. So that sensitivity is kind of a curse when you come into different vibrational fields because it's hypersensitive, relatively speaking. But as this force, the truth consciousness is coming to you, Tris, expands, it starts opening up the capacity of the inherent design that is trying to protect itself from an unwanted field of energy. So in this field, certain energies are acceptable, certain energies are neutral, certain energies are repulsive. This is tied into the very cellular structure of the body. When the transformation happens, it starts opening up those cellular structures, making them more resilient, less distressed, more capable of having them come through. The only reason they create distress is we're reacting to them, and therefore that reaction, it's like an autoimmune reaction, is creating the problem in your system. So because more energy is coming to you, you're actually more resilient.
Oh, because they put in Wi-Fi in the school. I never had it in my room before. Well, they put it in, but I unplugged it and they didn't know I did that. So I was like, okay for years. But then I'm at another school now and they have it in the room. And I wondered, I'm 8 hours a day and I'm okay. And I'm wondering how am I okay with this now?
That's it. Transformation actually changes the very capacity of the bioelectrical and the biochemical capacity of the body to be in existence. So the reason we're sensitive is there's a resistant structure. This is also true in trauma. We can be traumatized and then even certain words trigger us. That's all locked up in the nervous system. It's all locked up in the electrical, biological component of our nervous system. When we expand in our ability to be the quality of consciousness itself, the body starts releasing the contractions and we become more open, resilient, and flexible. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Amar.
Yes.
Hi, Shree.
Hello.
Hi,
Namaste.
Amar.
Hello, Sachamai.
Do we know Amar?
I've seen you before, but I don't quite remember where.
Well, this is the first time I'm joining the live feed. I've watched
Okay.
talks for a couple of years now.
Yes.
This is my first time on the live feed.
Well, welcome then. Good for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're surrounded by light.
I'm sitting behind a window.
That's beautiful, actually. Okay.
So I just thought it'd be nice to connect with you since I've been listening to you for the past couple of years. I thought I'd maybe share a little bit of what's been happening for me in the last month and a half. And I had a pretty, I had a couple of questions as well. So about a month ago or a month and a half ago, I've had awakenings in the past. I think my first awakening was about 6 years ago, but they were quite brief. And then I did a Vipassana retreat, and then I was on and off for it. And then I went through a corporate job, got fired, did all that stuff for a while. And then
The universe spit you out, right?
I did, yeah. But then about a month and a half ago, and now my job is quite simple as well. And I work from home, and it's easy, it's a lot better. And about a month and a half ago, this quiet determination kind of started, and I started doing the silent sitting.
Turn up the sound on.
And I felt a lot of things shift for me, and just feels like a good time for me to be doing this, and it feels right. I feel a lot.
Tell me about the most recent event that you were. What happened for you?
Recent event is an awakening.
Yes, you were talking about something in the last month or so. What was that? What happened?
The shift, I'm not too sure. It was a very subtle thing. I had just come back from a trip where I was visiting my family. And I think for quite a few years, because of the awakenings I'd had, I felt like I was avoiding the path in some ways, in the sense of like I was a bit scared to commit to it. But I think there was just this maturity that happened once I got back, where I just felt like, okay, like I can't avoid this any longer. I need to commit to this and I need to do this.
And that what you're committing to is the spiritual path, or commit to coming back to the world?
Commit to the spiritual path in a sense of I know what I experienced was true, and I'd like to be able to have that be an abiding experience and to discover anything more.
Good.
That's
So you're looking to make it real,
yes.
abiding, so it
Yeah.
becomes a permanent part of your lived life.
Yeah.
That's the purpose. That is the correct purpose. You bring your awakening, you bring it into your system as deep as it needs to go so that it's always there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that I just want to acknowledge that. And it is when that determinate moment occurs, it's a resolve. It's a willingness to commit, to go deeper, to get to what's left that's still hidden. This is the nature of the truth in you coming into the person of you with greater clarity, and with it, greater capacity. So I believe that's what's having you show up now, so that I can see you. Because now that I can see you, you can see me seeing you. And that being able to be recognized is what allows this incarnation force to empower that same force within you.
Yeah.
And that's the recognition. That's why you're listening to these talks. That's why this time you're showing up. And that recognition could be felt as just a draw to it, as well as a longing for it. There can be an aspiration for a greater truth, as well as a longing for a greater truth. So which is it for you? Is there this aspiration or longing, or both? All right, so we may have lost you.
Apparently we have lost you. Your picture is frozen.
Yeah, well, now he's shocked, stuck, hit.
What have you done?
Sorry about that. I got to pull that back a little bit.
Okay, Amir, when you get back on, just let them know you're back and we can finish.
Okay.
I wanted to say hi to some people that popped up that I haven't seen for a while. He's back, but I'm going to just say hi to Karen Young and to Lisa Stone. It's great to see you guys. So.
Okay, so, oh, you're back. Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So what did you hear the question?
Ask the question again.
Oh,
They hear the question, or had you frozen already?
There's a, sorry, 1 second. Oh, the Crowdcast was open in my background, so I was hearing two versions, and that was really confusing me. I didn't hear the question, sorry.
Okay, so the question I asked you is that there was a switch in your attitude, a switch in your willingness. That switch brings forward an experience that actually could be felt in your body. And I wanted to let the foundation of this was for you to begin to experience that quality of determination, of choice that's there in your body right now.
Okay.
And there's going to be two things. I'm going to just give you a little guidance. So just listen and keep looking while I'm talking. Is it an aspiring or is it a longing? Or both? And can you find a location?
I think it feels more like an aspiring. Sometimes when I listen to certain types of like bhakti music, I feel like there's more of a longing
Okay.
where it's like I really want to be there. But I feel right now I'm pretty like I'm pretty happy in general. It's more of an aspiration to get there. And for me right now, it feels like I'm building my life around it in a way where
Yes.
structuring
Yes.
it.
Very good. All right. So that has a location in your body. Can you feel right now where that is in your body? Is it in your heart, throat, belly? Just look.
I feel something in my gut, but I think that's a bit of anxiety of being in front of so many people.
Okay, but maybe that's what it is right now. That could be where, because excitement or anxiety is when we're going beyond ourselves. It's when the body, we're stepping out of the boundary of our usual protection structure. So that also is allowing for an experience to happen. It's an enlightening. Anxiety is actually a fear of the future, but excitement is the immediate experience of the same thing. So there's that excitement could be it. And you found it in your belly?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I want you to just take it up a little bit to your diaphragm. Pay attention to your diaphragm. And now pay attention to your heart. And now pay attention to your throat. Okay. Are you able to feel or notice anything in any of those areas?
I feel I kind of felt it move up slowly as I moved my attention.
All right. So good. All right. So this is where to focus your attention. When you meditate, or when you're sitting with me and you're listening to this conversation, be aware of the range, that range. It's mostly, I feel it, I'm experiencing it in the diaphragm, in your heart, and your throat. It's a current. It's like a current, a felt current. It's for you, I imagine it's faint, but for me, I can feel it. And it is the awakening in your body of what it is you're hearing, the wisdom that's coming to you, expanding of that quality of personal authority that's choosing to align with something different than you were born into. And I want to also invite you to a youth group. It's a group of young people that we're working with that are particularly ready to bring this into their lives. And it's an online program. You can go on the website under teachings and connect to that group where you can begin to share with others like you who are going through a similar process.
Amir, are you on gallery? Could you see everybody?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Are you on the gallery setting where you can see everybody else?
I'm on the speaker setting right now where I can see you guys.
Because Ahmed is on. He's part of the youth group.
Okay.
Right now. And then
Yeah.
Lisa Gita, I don't know if she's on today. Oh, she's waving also.
Yeah, you'll see them wave on the gallery view.
Oh yeah, I see them. Yeah.
And Maggie is there. There's quite a few who are part of the youth group. So what's that?
You're
Oh,
mute.
I'm muted. Oops. I'm sorry, I was muted. I did it again. Anyway, they heard me because I all waved.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right, very good. So just keep doing it.
And
Perfect.
always
Thank you.
Feel free to ask questions. We'll have an email address that'll come on at the end of the talk so that you can email your questions to. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amir. So we're gonna come back to the conversation that I wanted to have with you today. It's really more to kind of give you a intellectual understanding, a visual, in fact, to begin to recognize how the multidimensional universes and how our body can attune to them. And in the context of the entire organizational principle of consciousness, the way that what I call the journey of consciousness. So that what's going to come up on the screen now is a graphic. Give them a second.
Not yet.
Yeah, in the process. Give it a minute.
This is fun.
All
You
right.
guys did a great job.
Thank you.
We just lost the big one. Oh, there it is.
That's a little one over there and a big one over there. I think this one is
Well, they're seeing that one.
either. Okay, good.
You and I are seeing two different screens.
Okay. All right. So what you're looking at is you're there in the meditation posture in the middle of that graphic. All right. And that's your body. That is your embodiment. And if you look above, you'll see that blue circle, which says Sat. And that's a principle, a fundamental principle of the existence or of consciousness prior to existence. And then if you look down, the orange circle at the bottom is Asat. That is an expression of the Sat in existence. One is the Sat not in existence, which becomes the foundation for all consciousness, which that circle, the overall circle, represents. And that is labeled Tat of creation. Tat is the field of possibility of existence, which gets created by the movement of the Sat separate from the Asat. They are both versions of the absolute. One is prior to the existence, and the other is utterly inconscient, totally without any apparent consciousness, embedded in the very substance of matter. That means substance is not even yet matter itself. It's this gaseous, yet to be plasmatic, yet to be subatomic, yet to be actual atoms, yet to be compounds of which matter comes, but they are components of this physical manifestation. There is a tension that gets created. When these two separated, in this vibrational tension, the entire existence occurred instantaneously. It was everywhere all at once, and that's the Tat. So now as we look at this, you can see in the middle of the human body, in the belly portion, in the third chakra, this little blue and orange symbol says Chit. That is where the two come together in the human body. It is the combustion of matter and fire, spirit and matter, that occurs in each of us in the human body, which allows us to convert matter, food, into a substance, the rasha, the fluid that empowers our body. It's derived from the very field of consciousness of the creation of the Tat. It's in science, they recognize that any cubic centimeter of space has enough energy to power the world. So too, in this field of consciousness, we tap into an unlimited energy source through the union of these two, but limited by the evolutionary process that created our bodies. Because the evolutionary process of creating our body was a process of separation, of contraction, of trapping consciousness into structures that would allow for what would eventually become the physical creation. So there is what you're seeing here is a journey of consciousness where it starts from the Sat, radiating out from the Sat, first very, very subtle, taking on more and more qualities, eventually becoming inconscient, becoming the Asat. And in between the two, high to low, are all these domains of consciousness, all these planes of being, in which we, when we awaken, can begin to travel, because that form of the body you see in the graphic is just one of many bodies that includes eventually, so that entire graphic is occurring within our body. That this entire journey of consciousness, from the descent to the evolution out of matter into the development of self-awareness into the human being, and the return of the human being to its original nature, and then its manifestation, all occurs. We are the field. We are the entire universe. Our body, through this simple, messy, biological physical vehicle, we have an entry point into being able to discover not only the truth of ourselves, but the truth of the creation itself, its purpose, and our role in it. So I wanted to show you this diagram just to hint to you just the power and the truth of what we are. So there are some lines that are referencing, we call it planes of consciousness over, from my vantage point, it's on the right side, I think on yours too, it would be on the right side. And you can see the different vibrational frequencies of consciousness as it rises up, 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 all the way up until the absolute, to the Sat itself. So if you look at the bottom of it, you can see that we are actually also living as part of a domain of total unconsciousness. What we can see as the physical world is simply one of the more surface expressions of an organizational principle that has come in less than instinctive, more primitive, the very organizational structures of matter that physics has been able to discover. That inherent in that organizations of compounds into elements and elements into biological life and so on and so forth, comes from a certain quality of intelligence inherent in the Sat that is also there in the Asat, but it's totally, utterly unaware of it. So it comes out driving the entire foundation of physical existence. And in the process, from the bottom up, creating domains of consciousness. So from inconscient, we go to the unconscious. And from the unconscious, we go to the sleeping. And from the sleeping, we go to the dreaming. And from the dreaming, we go to the waking state of consciousness, the ones that allows us to be aware, self-aware individuals in life with mind and senses and body and experience and stories and all the stuff that we are. But as you awaken, many people awaken from the waking consciousness, but many of us are actually awakening in our dreaming consciousness, which means we're bringing something of our self-aware awakened consciousness into that vibrational domain of dreaming. And that is a domain. By the way, it's vast and unlimited. It has no limit, it has no beginning, and it has no end. So when we start descending towards the Asat, in the process of where our attention goes, we're going out of awakening into this intermediary plane between waking and sleeping. In sleeping, we're utterly unaware of ourselves. In waking, we're as aware of ourselves as we can be as individuals. In dreaming, we're somewhere in between. There are domains. Now, normally our waking self cannot perceive those domains in dreaming because the quantum of consciousness in dreaming is less than waking. And therefore, we can only have a hint or sense of it, and it's very hard to bring it back because the light that we're experiencing that domain with is much dimmer than our waking consciousness. But there are people, especially who are psychically developed, who can be awake when they dream. And that is that awake dreaming state, where actually the dream state takes on something of the reality of that vibrational frequency, so that you can actually experience the domain of dream. And the nature of of dreaming is somewhat chaotic. It actually has bits and pieces of fragments. It doesn't have the linearity of our waking consciousness. So you're always going to be shifting fragments of it. But when you come into that state of dreaming with your self-awareness from the waking consciousness, it begins to organize around you. It begins to reveal information. It begins to show you something of your subconscious self. It starts talking to you because you're there. It has a purpose when you're there to show you the nature of what's hidden in your own subconscious and in fact, the collective subconscious. Carl Jung was able to reverse into these domains and see archetypal structures that were the organizing principle of our waking self, which lives like at the tip of the iceberg on top of this vast hidden aspect. And then there's sleeping. Now, very few people can be awake in sleeping. In yoga, this is called samadhi. What happens in the sleeping state is you're in various states of an altered awareness, which is both awake and asleep simultaneously. Therefore, the quality of what's there in the sleeping consciousness cannot make any sense in the rest of our consciousness. Now, notice what sleeping consciousness is pointing to. It's pointing to the very bottom root chakra. When we're in sleeping consciousness, we are merged with a version of the Asat, the truth embodied. When samadhis that come, the descending samadhis, because there's two kinds of samadhis, there's an ascending samadhi. When we come into that, at that time, for as long as we stay awake in that sleeping state, it's a hugely powerful transformative process that's going on in our bodies while that's occurring. Now, this happens in the advanced stages of yoga, where we begin to be having spent years collaborating with the process of our own awakening. But it's not enough that we awaken upward. In terms of the inconscient domains, the domains of the Asat, we have to choose to awaken downward. We have to choose to go into the dark domains that regular human consciousness would traverse. This process is what transformation is about. When we awake spiritually, the quality of our waking consciousness takes on a different vibration, a greater density and capacity. And it's able to descend into these domains and experience and know them in ways other than it could experience and know the normal domains of waking consciousness. And you have to train yourself to be able to gather information and experience as this goes on. And you start meeting the very fundamental archetypal structures of yourself, which are linked to your parents, which are linked to your ancestral karma. They start revealing themselves. They start showing their nature because you're the light amidst the darkness. And that process of revelation is part of the transformation that allows you to see in ways that you were never able to see the darkness, the hidden obscurities, the programming, the trauma, the conditioning that has limited your ability to know the greater truth of yourself. So there's a direct relationship between the lower domains. When I process happened, that's where I went. I descended. I went into dreaming, and then ultimately I went into sleeping. And in those domains, that they have connection from the dark to the light. So it is an entry point in order to be able to experience more tangibly what occurs when you take the ascending action. So let's come back to the state, the middle point, waking consciousness, right there, third chakra. Third chakra is where the Agni lives. It's where the Chit and the Sat and the Asat exist in a field of Chit. It's the engine of our consciousness in a body. When we wake up spiritually, we start coming into relationship with the self. It means the Kundalini Shakti, which either can go below, can come from below or be awakened from above. It can be activated from below or awakened from above, moves from the third chakra. It begins to wake up to itself and it begins to move upward. This is self-awareness. This is when we become aware of ourself without content. We become aware of that which can experience the content. We become aware of ourselves as the context in which the content of ourself is arising. This is the quality of our consciousness when we begin to ascend up towards the heart, crossing the vast field of the vital domains. And in this, we begin to have our spiritual experiences. We begin to meet the beings that are all around us all the time. We begin to meet the outer manifestation of the subtle worlds, and we start entering into our various subtle bodies that allows us to experience each of these subtle worlds. So this is a movement from Rajas up towards Sattva. So if you look on the left side of the screen, you'll see how the gunas shape the capacity of consciousness, where tamas, where the consciousness is most limited, shapes from the first all the way up to the third. And then At the third, when consciousness awake, somewhere before the third, slightly down in the second chakra, the rajas arises up and starts expanding and becoming more refined as it enters into sattva, as it goes up the higher chakras. So as we ascend out of our normal waking consciousness and we start going into the self, we start becoming more sattvic. That means more sat-like. We still have rajas, we still have seeking, we still have the motive to seek, the longing, the aspiration. It's most tangible as we ascend. Both the longing and aspiration is most tangible as we ascend. And then as the self goes through the stages. Now, waking, as we teach in the Bhagavad Gita, is the first 6 chapters. At the end of the 6th chapter, you come to the self. We become stable in the self. The next stage is when the self turns to God. When we turn to God, we begin to meet the gods, the emanations, the vibhutis, and the forces of the more vigorous consciousness that's more sat-like. And in this process, we then actually experience ourselves living for periods of time, minutes, hours, days even, in these other domains that allow us to become aware that we're not just our physical body, we're multiple bodies. And in those, each frequency, as we move up, we connect to the plane of consciousness of that frequency. Just like we can be aware of the physical universe through our senses, when we awake to the next plane of consciousness, we create a new collection of senses, new means of gathering information and experience that's consistent with that plane. And we begin to come out of the density and the habit and the programming. And this also sets in motion a transformational process that comes from the sat above. Because as we move up, it moves closer to us. It becomes more tangibly available to us. It starts illuminating the field while it illuminates us. So it's a movement of union between our arising consciousness, our awakening consciousness. From that point, we go beyond God and we come to moments of glimpses of the truth itself, of the absolute truth itself. And that's in the vicinity of the 6th chakra and then the crown chakra. So the crown chakra is the boundary, just like the 1st chakra is the boundary between our individual ability to know and experience and the universe. So when the crown chakra opens up, we are bringing in the entire cosmos. Our ability to assimilate it may not be great. Our ability to receive it in our physical body may not be great, but that is what's happening. We're gazing at the 1,000 suns arising and are totally lost and absorbed in that light. That's the nature. It's only when we've embodied more that we can actually consciously traverse these last domains. And it's all going to be occurring, as you will see, in our bodies. It is the body. Now, as we ascend, what happens is we start calling a force from below up our bodies. The asat starts joining with the sat above, just as the whole universe is this process of trying to resolve the separation of the sat from the asat. It starts coming down and in the process calling the asat up. And when these two start coming together in our body, this process of a proximity of the two, that is when the transformative forces are the most vigorous in all planes of consciousness and ultimately in our bodies. And that's the key that I want to make the point of. The universe resolves itself, becomes itself, wakes up to itself in each of our unique individual bodies. As we ascend up towards the sat, there is the samadhi that comes when we cross the threshold of the 7th chakra. And you disappear in this ascendant, fierce force of the sat, of the original pure origin, the force that comes out of the original purity of the sat. We meet all the gods and we go beyond the gods and we meet the Hiranyagarbhaya, we meet the Supreme Being, we meet all these things in the process. And in those moments, we are merged. We're lost to the world. We're lost to our personality. We're lost to time and space and causality. And when we come out, we have this greater capacity to bring that force into our body and evoke the Asat from below, allowing for the resolution of this initial separation to occur within us. Okay, that's all I wanted to say about that. So let's take that off the screen. All right, so what's the utility of knowing this? Well, it is yet to be unfolded, because the fact of the matter is this has all been an experiential unfolding that happened for me, which later I came to understand. So it's actually probably already happening to you, but you have not yet been able to come to the recognition of that's what it is. And this gets down to the whole way of learning to know and assimilate and integrate experience on once we step out of the mind and five senses. And that is those three principles of recognition, revelation, and realization. So transformation is a process of enhancing our ability to recognize truth, to experience truth, to experience the interconnection of all existence as a tangible experience, but which might not make any sense to what we have made sense of before, as the human mind does for the five senses. So in order for that to make more sense for us, there's this process that occurs, this extraordinary, miraculous process where the universe starts adapting itself so that we can see it, so that we can hear it through our bodies. It creates a new kind of recognition, a new capacity to receive, a new capacity to perceive. And this then is a process of revelation where we start understanding. We start not just recognizing, but being revealed the quality of what we have been recognizing. This revelation process I shared in my last talk, where you become like a microscope for truth, where it's like an MRI or an X-ray that sees into the very fabric of existence wherever you pay your attention to, or like a MRI telescope that looks out into the infinities and can see the very design and fabric of existence. And in the process, this revelation process is you embodying it. And this may go on for years and years and years until the embodied capacity of consciousness begins to realize. That means make real what it's been recognizing and what's being revealed. This realizing actually occurs within the physical body. So where I am speaking now is from the part of my mind that has opened up enough that the intelligence can language this, in this case, English, that can begin to label through the power of labeling words, the very design of this existence. Now, I'm not going to say this is perfect. It's certainly coming through the limitation of the veil of this person. But one thing this person was in the course of his life was an architect. And the nature of an architect is to have an integrative consciousness. That means you have to be aware of many pieces and how they affect each other simultaneously. So this capacity has allowed me to language and articulate what it is that we've all been born into as a what we call it an interim theory of everything, or an interim description of how it all works, coming from one who's been shown and revealed over these 20 years. So this is what's possible for all of you. This is, now that I am speaking it, now that you are receiving it, it is my experience that those of you who are linked to these teachings and to me and to this relationship and this opportunity, you're going to discover your own capacity to recognize, to be there and allow and recognize, let the revelations in, and to see that they're all in a context that has an immediate relevancy in each moment of your lived life. It has immediate power in the immediacy of this now, this time, this person, this circumstance. To be able to meet the challenge and the opportunity to fight the battle, if need be, into the dark, unmet realms, or to clarify what is the nature of the battle, to empower you to be able to fight that battle, as Krishna does with Arjuna. Ultimate purpose of the Gita was to make Arjuna Krishna. And that's the ultimate purpose of this teaching, is to empower that quality of the Krishna in you, the supreme being within you, to be useful during this period of transition. So I know what it feels like over here. I feel like I'm a fountain of fierce energy that's coming into existence, that's implanting this possibility into the collective consciousness through each of you, to be able to create a new paradigm for spiritual life, for human life and spiritual life, where human and spirit are the same. So it's like a roar. My whole body feels like a roaring of the song of the Supreme. It's roaring.
I can see Bridget smiling.
And it's a song. It's the song that the Gita speaks to. It's the song, it's the call of truth for all of us. And that part of us that can receive this and hear us is the collaborator with this becoming our truth, becoming our growing up into the fullness of the possibility of the truth of why we were born. Okay, now I'm going to pull back. Go back.
Oh, good. I'll take it in more into the human part.
All right. Thank you, Shakti. Yeah.
Sarah Pitchford, hello. I just saw you. I was like, oh my God. This has been such an amazing experience for us because, you know, we won't be traveling to Europe this year. We are pretty much, we already know this. This is pretty much the first time we're speaking this out loud. So all of you, many of you who we spent a lot of time with prior years or saw in Europe, this is the chance I'm going to get to see all of you on these programs. So, I mean, Sarah, it's so great to see you. Rama, it's like, what, 1 a.m. there where she is. She was, I've got India, I've got Hugh and Nella in Australia, a lot of you guys from Europe. And of course, Annalisa, I could not say hello to you. Anyway, this is my part of this whole thing.
It's our part.
For me, this is a connection to every single one of you. And please, you know, that's why we're doing this. So that we give you an opportunity to stay connected to the community as much as possible. And we have some things coming pretty soon. So we'll be sharing those with you. And, you know, again, Lisa and Karen, it's great to see you guys too. All right.
All right. So this is part of an unfolding series.
Yes.
And this is something that came out of the 9-day, where the quality of consciousness came and just revealed, okay, Satri, this is next. So it's a series of talks that are really meant to set a foundation for a new level of the work. And part of it is because so many of you are coming up to a place where this can be translated into your life in meaningful ways. And that every song needs a listener. There can be no song if there's no one there to hear it. But the more who can hear it, the more the song starts resonating, starts being sung by many voices. The more this can infuse into the collective consciousness, so the listening that's required, the waking up that needs to happen can happen. Because there's most of the planet is not able to receive this. The parts of the planet that can receive it are the plants or the trees or the animals. It's the humans that have the greatest obscurities. So the more of us that can receive this song, then even those who are most obscured will be getting the ability to recognize the correction that needs to happen in a way that lets them see that their actions are impacting everyone else. Waking up, coming to responsibility for whatever role they may be playing. That is limiting the new order that needs to come to respond to the crisis that's coming. Clearly, we're living it right now. We're living the beginning of this era. The World Mother is now empowered. She's scary. And she has just started. She's found her feet. The intervention came in and she's recovered her muscle. And she's going to do whatever is necessary to make sure this planet survives. Even if a whole bunch of us don't. Even if a whole bunch of us don't.
Well, ultimately won't anyway.
Yeah. So the principle here is that we're part of an extraordinary time. And this revelation is to help empower that and clarify that. And it's my sense of this is that there'll be these breakout working group sessions, ways we can organize together in different ways all over the world to empower each of you in more intimate ways, begin to do this work or to meet this with yourself, with people who are connected to you, or people you have not yet met, with all of those that you are currently in partner with or in relationship with, so that this can permeate into the fabric of the matrix of this human embodied planet. The mother needs us like she's never needed before. And I do know that for her work to be fulfilled, she can only do it through the human power. This is part of the human being that can choose truth over untruth, to choose to give itself narrow, little, small life up for something greater, that can choose to endure the process of that shift. Okay, so let's take about 5 minutes and we'll just sit in silence and stillness. And I will see you next week.
Tuesday.
Well, briefly, Tuesday. Yeah.
Actually, our next program is Tuesday for 1 hour at 11 o'clock. I think that is also a satsang.
It'll be a satsang. I will take a different topic than this. It'll be only on Saturdays that I reveal this particular stream. But yes, Tuesday I'm going to speak about the peril. So, okay, let's meditate. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat Shree. All glory to the Supreme Being. May truth manifest. Namaste.
And if anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to make, please send it to. I'm mute again. Any comments or questions you have for Shree, please send to newdharma@gmail.com. Thanks.